Hey, what's going on, guys? It's a new year, and that means it's time to break down the best and worst kits from the past year. So in this video, we're going to be going over my top picks for the best, some picks for the worst, and then also some honorable mentions of the best of P-Bandai as well, because as we all know, these days Bandai is putting out a lot of P-Bandai kits, and there's a lot of really great ones that I feel like definitely deserve some mention as well, even though they're not widely available to those of us outside of Japan. And so as always, guys, I'm trying to take a look at this in the most objective way possible, taking out my personal likes and dislikes, because there was definitely some kits that came out this year that I liked a lot, but I didn't put them on the list, or some kits that are on the list that you guys will see that maybe weren't some of the kits that I particularly liked the most, but I think they're definitely some of the best ones, or worst ones, or honorable mentions from P-Bandai that I think should be on the list for best and worst of the year. So let's just get right into it, and we'll start off with some of the worst kits of this year. And we're gonna start off here very early in the year. We had HGUC Gustav Karl. Now, the Gustav Karl was a design that I think a lot of people were really excited about when it was first announced, and the kit overall is not really that bad. I should preface this by saying also that there really weren't any really stinker bad kits out this year. So the worst list here is not really going to be kits that I would recommend you guys totally avoid. They weren't as good as other kits that came out this year. So the Gustav Karl is a perfect example of that. Not a bad kit at all. In fact, it's an alright kit, but I just think that Bandai didn't really handle it in the way that they needed to. If they were going to make a Gustav Karl, it's a very chunky design, and the kit didn't really seem like it was designed with that in mind. It didn't really seem, in just the overall handling and quality of the kit, the overall stability of it, it seemed like it really needed a little bit more going on in there to really fill out the design, to really make it a nice big solid kit, and to also improve some of the articulation. Now, there was some nice points of articulation in there. You can see some points where Bandai did sort of take into the massive chunk into consideration in designing it, but I feel like it could have been, and probably should have been, designed a little bit better. If they were going to go ahead and make an HGUC Gustav Karl, it needed to get a little bit more care just because of the design of the mobile suit. And also, the thing that I think will probably disappoint a lot of people is just the weapons that are included with it. All it really has is just the one dinky rifle, which is a little bit underwhelming. I think most people who are going to want to build this are probably going to want to equip it with something else. So you're probably going to end up having to buy some sort of their option set, or taking a weapon from some of their different kit or something, doing some sort of kit bashing to this kit. And for those people who don't want to do a kit bashing, they want to be able to buy a kit and have what they want in there already. I think a lot of people maybe will feel a little bit disappointed with just the tiny little rifle with their giant mobile suit that they just got. Next one is the Master Grade S Gundam / XS Gundam, basically the 1.5 version of the Master Grade S XS Gundam that we got out. Again, not a bad kit at all, and it's definitely the best version of that kit that you can get out, that's for sure. And I just think the biggest problem is just the price. Because they made it to have the parts to choose between the S Gundam and the XS Gundam, the price is just too high. The original price of the Master Grade XS Gundam just by itself at 8,000 yen is already pretty high on the list of most expensive Master Grades, but for this kit to come out at 13,000 yen, around $130 for this, is just, I think, going to be a really tough sell, I think, to a lot of people who are fans of the Master Grade. Now, if they would have released this as two separate kits, as a sort of 1.5 version of the S Gundam available separately from the XS Gundam, I think it would have been a lot better. Of course, that probably would have cost Bandai more in the long run. Releasing it as one kit, obviously, I don't quite understand or know the reasoning behind it, but I'm sure there is reasoning behind releasing it as they did. It just, for those of us as consumers, I think just the price is not good, and of course the fact that it just uses a lot of parts from the original kit. A lot of people don't really like that. I think it's not really that bad in this case. The old parts that it does use, I think, aren't really too much of a hindrance to the kit. It's still a really good kit, a really solid kit, and definitely the new parts that they've added to it are really, really nice. I think they probably should have redesigned the rifle. That would have been good if they would have made an entirely new beam smart gun for that. So I think they could have gone a little bit farther, making maybe a few more minor upgrades to some of the parts of the kit, and releasing it in a different way that didn't cost so much would have been nice. The next one is the HG Death Army. This is another one that you wouldn't really expect it to be too much, because it's just kind of a really simple little HG, but I was expecting it to be a little bit better than it was, to be honest, because we had the HG Leo and the HG Magonak, and they were both pretty good solid kits. I really had very little to complain about either of them, and very cheap as well. The Death Army kit, at least, is very cheap, and it is very simple, but it just has a ton of seam lines all over it, so I wish if they were going to be releasing it like in the line after the Leo and the Maganok, which did also have a couple of seam lines, to be fair. This one definitely had a lot of them, and it had some alright color separation in some areas, but there was a few little areas where I think it maybe could have included a couple of more parts would have been nice. And so again, while this is not really necessarily a bad kit, just especially the amount of seam lines on this kit is what's going to be kind of really a pain for a lot of builders if you're wanting to go in for a kit. If you're thinking, oh, it's the Death Army kit, it's pretty simple, it's the kind of kit that I could build up and paint up in like a couple days, it's not really going to take that long. It's probably going to take you a couple days just to get rid of all the seam lines on this kit, especially some of the really tricky ones around the spiked areas. You got spikes on the wrist and spikes on the gun. There's seam lines going through all the different spikes on that, and so that was just kind of a little bit disappointing that you couldn't have designed that in a different way. Now the gun I kind of understand just because of the design of that, but there was a couple parts that I think, at least in my opinion, in my experience, probably could have been designed in a different way to avoid the seam lines. Maybe would have been a little bit more expensive on Bandai's part, but I wish that they would have done that a little bit differently. And the last one here on the worst list is the HG Build Divers Re-Rise New Zeon Gundam. Now this is one that I didn't actually build, in all fairness, so I can't really speak too much on the actual quality of the build, I should say. I also am just feeling like not a lot of other people built this one either, because the design was just so ugly. I am sure there are people out there who do like the design of this, and I'm sure there's people out there who bought the kit and probably like it. And same thing with all these kits on the list. Actually, I didn't necessarily really feel like I disliked any of these kits on this list, except the New Zeon, which I didn't even bother building because it was just so ugly. But this one I just know because it's based off an older HG. I wouldn't really expect like the articulation and the build of it to be all that advanced anyway. And then they're taking an old HG and making new parts on it that just look awful. And again, that's a little bit subjective, just the design. I mean, that's, you know, the design may appeal to some people more than others, of course, but I think it's probably safe to assume that a lot of you guys will agree with me in that this is one that I expect to see in the bargain bin for years to come. So that is it for the worst list. Now let's talk about some P-Bandai kits, some of the best of the P-Bandai kits that came out this year, and then we'll end it with the best of the year. So just some P-Bandai mentions, and I won't talk too much about these. I'll just put them in just a list of here, some of the ones that I would definitely recommend getting if you can swing the money for them. So the first one being the Masquerade Dwaj, or the Dwaj Kai. This is a really great, another situation where it's basically like a 1.5 version of the Masquerade Dom, which I think the Masquerade Dom, not a bad kit at all for its age, and now that we have sort of like a 1.5 version of that, it's an even better build, and the Dwaj and Dwaj Kai are really cool designs, so I really liked both of those. The Masquerade Rigazi Custom, a huge improvement over the original. Another example of like a Masquerade 1.5 version here with this one. We have a lot of really new parts here over the original Masquerade Rigazi, so it's definitely a huge improvement if you're a fan of that design. We had some really amazing, once again this year, some really amazing Advance of Zeta kits come out in the Premium Bandai line. We had the HG UC Primrose, the G Parts Fruitadoo, and of course the Hazenflay 2. That was an amazing kit. So those are just a few really amazing kits that are great. If you're an Advance of Zeta fan, then those are ones you definitely want to have in your collection. Also the Masquerade Gundam F90, an entirely new design in the Premium Bandai line here for this Masquerade, and it's a really super solid kit. It's a really great kit. The color separation on it, the part separation, you have a lot of really nice fine details on there. It's a really, really great Masquerade, and it's just a shame that it came out as a P-Bandai. And then the last couple here, a couple HGUC kits, the Modrock, which just recently came out, just recently built that. That was a really fantastic little HG kit, another one that's totally new for the line. And also the second V. The second V is building off some parts from previous kits, but it's got some new parts in there which really improve the kit quite a lot as well. It's sort of like a 1.5 version of the HG Victory Gundam here in the different variant, of course, in the second V. So another really great HG kit to come out in the P-Bandai line. So those are some really great P-Bandai kits that I would definitely recommend you guys get. If you're on the fence, if you ever come across it and you're thinking, oh, I like it, but it's pretty expensive, I would say, you know, as long as you can swing the money for it, then definitely go for it. Those are all kits that I would highly recommend. Now, let's get into the best of the year. Now, I think this is probably going to be pretty obvious, most of these, as we all pretty much know that there were some really great kits that came out this year. First off being the Masquerade Dynamis. Of course, the Masquerade Dynamis had amazing articulation, fantastic detail, the looks, proportion of it was fantastic. Bandai just did a really, really great job on this and really set it up for making a really great Curios coming out this year, and then hopefully later this year, but possibly maybe next year at some point whenever we get the Virtue as well, also going to be equally good. Now, I don't think I really need to go into too much more detail about why this one is great. It's just a really fantastic master grade if you are a 00 fan, or if you're just a master grade fan, or if you just like a good quality build in any way, shape, or form, then I would definitely recommend the Dynamace. Now, the next one here is the real grade Crossbone, and this was one I kind of debated whether I wanted to put on here or not, just because it's a really great kit, but kind of among the real grade line, which has been just pretty consistently good as of late. So does the Crossbone really stand out? And the reason why I wanted to put this on here is because I think it does stand out, especially compared to other versions of the Crossbone. The HG kit and the Master Grade kit, I think neither of them are really bad kits. They're actually still both pretty good, in my opinion, for what they are. But most definitely the real grade Crossbone, I think, is the best version of the Crossbone out yet. And so that's why I wanted to put it here on the list of the best of the year, because Bandai finally gave us the best version of the Crossbone. So if you're a fan of the Crossbone, definitely go for the real grade version. The next one, also a real grade, of course, the real grade new Gundam we have to put on here. And this one as well was a little bit of a toss-up because of the fact that the Master Grade Verka is still so good. Is this one really the one that I would recommend over the Master Grade Verka? And it's really kind of hard to decide between, if I had to recommend one or the other, would I really recommend the real grade? And it kind of depends on what you want as a builder. I think the Master Grade is still a fantastic kit, definitely one of the best Verkas, definitely probably one of the best Master Grades out there. But the real grade is also, I would say, probably one of the best real grades that we've got out so far. Once again, the part separation, the articulation, the detail, especially on the inner frame. This one has a really super nicely detailed inner frame as well for people who like building inner frames. It's definitely a little bit more stable, especially in the fin funnels on the backpack compared to the Master Grade. So it's definitely got some improvements over the Master Grade here as well. It's missing some features like the little bits of psycho frame and things like that was a feature with the Verka, that maybe some people would have wanted that in the real grade as well, although it's not particularly canon, I think, as far as that goes. But if I was thinking definitely that, given the choice between the two, if I had to recommend them to someone, if I would definitely recommend the Master Grade, then I maybe wouldn't have included the real grade on this list, but I could equally recommend both of them depending on what you want out of the kit. I think for most people, probably just the general builder, in most cases, I would probably just recommend the real grade, to be honest. It's a little bit cheaper as well. And while real grades are kind of generally known to have a lot of really tiny parts and be a little bit finicky, this one has some small parts in there, but it's a pretty solid kit, so it's definitely one I could recommend, even if for people who are kind of a little bit more towards the beginner spectrum of builder. Now, the next one here is another Master Grade. This is the Master Grade Alex version 2.0, and this is one, if you guys watched my review of this, you know, I wasn't really particularly a big fan of this kit personally, but that was just because I didn't really too much care for the design. But as far as the kits go, I think it was a really great Master Grade kit because it gave you a lot in the box. You have the Master Grade Alex itself, just the main Gundam, just by itself with just its shield and the beam rifle, I think would have been fine if they would have just released it as that and released like the armor as a separate P-Bandai add-on set. No one really would have liked that, but I could have definitely seen Bandai going that route. Now, it's really good that they didn't go that route. They gave us all the armor and everything, and even what I liked even more than having the armor is the inner frame, kind of the inner skeleton of the armor as well, was such a cool gimmick. And to have all of that in the box, and Bandai didn't go the route of making that a P-Bandai or like a separate kit or anything, is really great. They actually, as you would expect, as you would hope, they did the proper thing by just giving it all to us in the box all at once. And it's a good kit, very solid kit. The articulation is nice. The only thing really you have to be careful of is that wrist joint with this kit. The ball joint for the wrist, be super, super careful with that. Sand down that ball joint before you include that onto the kit, because once that's popped in there, it's very, very prone to breaking the wrist. So just be careful with that. Other than that, I think definitely a great Master Grade to come out this year, and if you're a fan of the design, then definitely you have to pick that up. If you're like me and not super into the design, then you can probably pass on it. It's not like one of the ones that I would say you definitely have to build if you're a fan of Master Grades or whatever, but there's definitely a lot to like, and it has some really cool gimmicks with it, with the shield opening up and of course the Gatling gun in the arm and everything. It's just got some cool gimmicks and a lot of stuff to enjoy there in the box with that kit. Now, the next thing, the only HG kit that I've got on the list for the best of this year. There was a lot of great HGs, but what I was looking for, again, was something that would really stand out, and the one kit that really stood out to me this year for HG kits was actually the Earth 3 Gundam, the HG Build Divers Re-Rise Earth 3 Gundam, just because of the fact that it brought something new and interesting that we haven't seen in HG line, and the fact that that's coming in a Build Divers like a build series HG kit, like build fighters, build divers. The line has been a little bit kind of all over the place as far as quality goes, but this one gave us something totally new. It wasn't relying on any old kits, and it gave us a really cool gimmick with having the core Gundam in there. So that was something that I really appreciated from Bandai, trying something new like that. The core Gundam, I didn't think a lot of people were really going to be into that. I didn't know how many people were really going to go for that, because it's sort of like SD kind of, right? And like not everybody's into SD, but I think a lot of people really enjoyed that kit. And the other great thing about it is, and then have the other versions of it coming out, the V2 and the Mars 4, these different versions you can interchange all the parts and everything. So it's a really versatile kit by changing up the armaments how you would want it, and we have the different versions of it coming out. And so I think really great kit that Bandai put out there for the HG Build Divers line to really sort of kick off the HG Build Divers line. It was a really fantastic start. And so then the last one here, which is the best, and these aren't in any particular order, but I would say this is probably the best kit of the year just in general, is the Master Grade Barbatos. So of course I had to put this on the list. If you guys saw my review of this, I raved about the kit, even though I'm not really a super big fan of the Barbatos in general. The kit is fantastic, and there's still parts of the design of the Master Grade kit that I don't really particularly like. I don't really like the feet all that much, for example, but it's such a good kit. It's a really, really fantastic kit. It's so much miles ahead better than the non-grade 100 scale version. When this was coming out, I was thinking, do we really need the Master Grade? We have the 100 scale version like already. It already has the full inner frame. You know, how much better is it going to be? It's that much better. Definitely, I could think that this one is the just best kit of the year, but it's definitely one of the best kits of the year. Even if you disagree, I would say some people will probably think the Dynamace is the best, but what I like about the Barbatos more than the Dynamace is that the Barbatos was just a little bit more interesting of a build. The Dynamace it's a really fantastic kit, but it's a pretty standard build for just a nice, good quality, like recent Master Grade kit. The Dynamace wasn't boring by any means, but it was a fairly predictable kind of build, very nice build. But the build of the Master Grade Barbatos there was some parts of it that were just so interesting and so unique, very intricate builds and building parts of the inner frame. It's just a really fun and interesting build. So it's definitely one that I would recommend as one that you should buy and build, whether you're a fan of the design or not. If you're just into building Gunpla models in general, then do yourself a favor and just check out this kit, because you're bound to enjoy it, whether you're a fan of the design or not. So that is my picks for the best, the worst, and some really awesome P-Bandai kits that came out this year as well. I'm sure you guys will disagree, and you'll let me know down in the comment section below. What do you guys think were some of the best and the worst? Was there anything that I missed, or was there anything that I included that you guys wouldn't have included? Just let me know. Feel free to duke it out down there in the comments. Keep it civil though, please. And also try to keep in mind that we're trying to keep this as objective as possible. Obviously, some people will have some very different points of view subjectively, and that's perfectly fine. But as far as this list goes, I wanted this list to be not taken as some of my favorites and least favorites, but as the best and the worst, as my recommendations for people to buy and or not buy from the past year's worth of kits that came out. And we had a lot of really great kits, so there was a lot of kits I could have put on this list, but I wanted to keep it pretty short. So that's what I came up with for this year. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Watch the next video, because the next video I'm going to be going over the 30 best kits of the past decade. It's now the end of the decade here, so we need to go over all of the best kits. Now I'm going to have that as a separate video coming up next, so watch that coming up. I'm going to break down my list of some of the best kits that I could come up with that you guys should own from the past decade. So I'll see you guys with that video up next. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you next time. Bye guys.